Have you ever walked into an interview feeling reasonably prepared and then the very first question throws you? Not necessarily because it's complicated, but because it's so wide open. One of those kinds of questions is, so, tell me about yourself. And then suddenly you're either saying too much, you're saying too little, or you're going completely blank. A friend of mine spent many years in a very senior role where he was responsible for hiring. He was a fair and thoughtful interviewer, and he genuinely wanted people to succeed. He wanted to hire them. But there was one part of the interview process that was non-negotiable. Candidates had to answer this question adequately. And unfortunately, very many didn't. My friend would see the same patterns over and over again. Some people would talk for 20 minutes about their cat or about the fact they go swimming every morning, about their childhood. Okay, fascinating perhaps in another context. But in that interview room, it sometimes cost them the job because they rambled too much. Others would barely get 2 sentences out before stopping and looking at him, waiting as if that was enough. And others would clam up entirely. You could almost see the panic. These were often people who in every other way would have been brilliant in the role, but the question defeated them. None of these were bad candidates. They just weren't prepared for how this question actually works. I think about another person I know, a lovely person, but someone with what I call the parable habit. Any opening in any conversation, and this person will find a way to make it all about themselves. You share something and within 30 seconds you're in the middle of their story. People around them often notice. And even if this person doesn't, for the people around them, there is sometimes a bit of eye rolling. Now, I don't think that this person is necessarily selfish. I think it's more a lack of awareness of the audience, of what the other person or the group actually needs from the conversation. That lack of awareness is exactly what trips people up when someone asks them to tell them about themselves. So let's think about what they are actually being asked. When somebody in an interview says, "Tell me about yourself," they're not asking for your autobiography. They're asking in the most open possible way, who are you? Why are you here? And why should we take a chance on you? That's the subtext. And your answer needs to speak to it. Here are a few things that may help. First of all, when somebody's asking you to tell them about yourself, understand the purpose of your answer. This isn't the moment for your full life history or your irrelevant hobbies or anything that doesn't connect to why you're sitting in that room. Think about what you want them to know about you that's relevant to this opportunity. Lead with that. Secondly, have an angle ready. Not a script that you'll recite word for word, but a clear line of thinking. Something that says, here's who I am professionally, here's what I care about, here's why this role makes sense for me right now. You can adjust it based on what you know about the company, the team, the culture, but have a starting point. Thirdly, practice the length. Most people are terrible at this without practice. A solid answer in an interview setting is probably 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Not 30 seconds, not 5 minutes. Time yourself. Do it out loud. It may feel odd, but you'll be grateful for the practice once you get into that interview room. Fourthly, don't undersell yourself because you're uncomfortable talking about yourself. This is a particular trap for introverts, and I say this as someone who is an introvert and who often undershares. Many of us find self-promotion genuinely uncomfortable. It can feel like showing off, but in this context, it isn't. It's giving the interviewer what they need to make a good decision. If you undersell yourself, you're not being modest, you're actually making their job harder and your own chances worse. What can also help, and this is my last suggestion in this list, is the use of step-by-step frameworks. They're not a formula for answering the question because the right answer genuinely depends on the role, the company, who you're speaking to. But what frameworks can do is help you audit your own stories and experiences first so that you can work out what's actually relevant and, importantly, how to present it. Think of them as a way to sift through what you have before you decide what to say. But that work needs to be done not in the room, but beforehand. So when you are in the room, you're not starting from absolutely nothing. The main thing I want you to take from this episode is simple. Tell me about yourself is not an invitation to improvise. It's an opportunity. One of the first you get to shape how that interviewer sees you. Think about what you want them to know. What do you want them to feel about you? Practice saying it out loud until it sounds natural. And then when you walk into that room and they lean forward and ask the question, you'll be ready. Thanks and see you next week.